like my brain likes to do calculus all the time and doesn't realize I really just need to do 1 + 1 = 2 here. But like my brain didn't even think to go there. It just went.
You want to go into like the philosophy of why 1 + 1 = 2 versus just answering the question.
Yes. And it's like, it's, that is my autopilot. So it's not that I'm even trying to do that. It's, I always think about that show, The Good Doctor, where, he looks up and then you just see all these puzzle pieces moving. And that's basically my brain 24/7, like even in the grocery store trying to pick something to eat for dinner. It doesn't stop.
ADHD Rewired, episode 346. This is the podcast for those of us with really good intentions and a slightly wandering attention. I'm Erika Tivers. I'm a licensed clinical social worker by training and a coach by design. I'm your host and I have ADHD. ADHD Rewired is more than just a podcast. We are a community. We are wired for connection and you are not alone. Go to ADHDrewired.com to learn how you can join us in our free secret Facebook group. Get additional resources for every episode, including links to any resources we mention on today's show. You can support us on Patreon, sign up for our email newsletter. You can request podcast postcards to distribute to your clients and support groups. And you can learn all about our intensive online video-based coaching and accountability groups. You can do all of this at our website, ADHDrewired.com. We know that starting is the hardest part, so let's get started. Welcome back to another episode of ADHD Rewired. We are here with our fourth and final mastermind from our admin from our 20th season of ADHD Rewired's coaching and accountability groups. If you are new to the podcast, our admin, we spell admin with 2 D's. Yep. ADDMIN. I just figured I'd spell it out for anyone's like, what? ADD. Okay. So I love it. I'm in tangents. We're like 30 seconds in and I'm already on a tangent. We're going to circle it back and just have everyone say hello. We have Natalie, Blake, Erika, and Jessica.
Hello.
Hi.
That was nicely in sync. All right. And today, Jessica is in the hot seat. So I'm going to let you just set it up for us and we will go from there.
Yeah, that sounds good. So basically the issue that I'm working on masterminding is that I have some pretty significant difficulties juggling the things that are really important in my life. And I am a firm believer that balance is a lie. And I know that no one can do it all, not even neurotypical people. But my struggles in this area are really significant. And it kind of ties into creating routines as well. The biggest reason that this is something that I really have to focus on right now is because about a year ago, I suffered a pretty bad injury that resulted in a chronic nerve pain condition. And within the last month, that has been spreading from where it originally started in my right foot up to my right hand. And if I can't put in place routines to help me focus on healing this, then that could get worse. And it could really impact things that are really important to me. And I definitely don't want to see that happen. However, with routines, I tend to have a little bit of an issue sometimes as soon as I set them up, which is something I'm pretty good at. But once they're set up, I tend to get really stuck in them. And it's almost like it loops so badly for me that trying to switch out of that routine is really, really, really difficult and sometimes impossible. Sometimes I'm not aware of it and sometimes I am aware of it and I still can't quite do it.
Okay. So what if we can walk away with one or two solutions or strategies, what do you kind of tell us what you're looking for?
Some way to implement a routine without getting overly detailed about it. Like, for example, I might decide, I need to meal plan. But instead of going, okay, I'll grocery shop on, I'll meal plan on Sunday, I'll grocery shop on Monday, and then these will be the nights that I meal prep. I won't do that. I will look up, okay, well, what are some ways that other people meal plan? Okay, well, what specific time do I need to do this? Okay, well, what tools should I use to help me organize the way that I'm going to meal plan? And by the time I get to the meal planning, I've already spent hours planning the meal planning. So shortening that would be great.
Okay. And to give some context, in addition to ADHD, there's also some OCD, and not like some OCD, like it's alive and well.
Yeah, it definitely is.
You should see what you can do with the spreadsheet.
Oh my goodness.
Okay. So let me ask you this. When you are sort of getting into that like mode of like, now you're researching all like the tool, right? Like, do you see yourself sort of doing it in that moment?
Sometimes. So sometimes that awareness is there. And that's really only came into place since I did get the OCD diagnosis as well. I was diagnosed with ADHD first, and the other one came months and months later. So the knowledge of it has helped me sometimes stop it in the moment. I see it and I go, whoa, okay, this is a grocery list. You're literally going to throw it away when you're done with it. You don't need to make it perfect. And I can just stop doing what I'm doing and interrupt the behavior. Sometimes I can see it and I can't. I'm like, I know that this is over the top and that I'm just going to keep doing it. Can't stop it.
Okay. Does anyone else have questions?
Not really a question. What we're looking for is to help you build a routine that implements the things you need to do, particularly to help heal yourself without it being a routine that causes an OCD flare-up. That's what you want.
Yeah. Yes, specifically. And then I guess the back end of that would also be if something else comes up, some kind of strategy, for example, well, X thing caught on fire and now you need to adjust for that variable. How do I like bring that into what I have going on without dropping everything else every time?
In your worksheet, you referenced, you use the phrase a lot of like dropping balls and juggling. Where do you store your balls so you see them?
Yeah. So I do try to externalize as much as possible. Lately, I have actually been using project management software, and that's been really helpful. My biggest problem so far is making sure that I have everything from before into the project management software.
Is that a problem?
Yes. She said with a question mark.
Because, sometimes switching tools can actually be a helpful strategy to like figure out what's not really relevant anymore. That's
accurate. I think my problem right now is that my tools aren't quite as synced up as they need to be. So if I do my budgeting in Google Sheets, I think I'm going to remember that my budgeting is in Google Sheets. But if I don't also put a task for that in my project management software,
okay,
as a big project comes up and that project is in my project management software, I'll be so focused on that piece that I'll forget I was doing this over here.
I know in conversations that we've had, you shared with me how active you used to be, and the injury was a real. It just sucked. Like it just threw off so much stuff for you, right? You'd said in your worksheet that my injury was so terrible that I was unable to meditate or do yoga. I still can't do yoga properly. What about doing it improperly?
Yeah. So that piece I'm fine with. It doesn't have to be the way that it used to be.
But I'm also wondering too, because I often think about this for myself, because exercise is such an important part of how I manage my ADHD, that like I always think, all right, if my legs got injured, what could I do with my arms to get cardio still? Like if my arms get injured, what could I do with just my like? Have you talked to even like maybe a physical therapist or an occupational therapist to figure out how to adapt so you can still be getting exercise in a way that your body can tolerate?
Yes. And so this is actually the perfect point at where my challenge kind of comes into play. So I actually have a swimming pool in my backyard. I have all kinds of equipment in my house, and the occupational therapist I've talked to is actually Natalie, who's on this call with us. So my problem is once that routine loop that I had got interrupted by the injury, and it was an everyday, I did it every day consistently, same exact time, same exact way. There's, probably pieces of the OCD going in there. But once it gets interrupted, setting those dominoes back up is really difficult, particularly when I have other dominoes set up that run counter to that.
Okay. Do you have a swimsuit that you can wear to get in your pool?
I have 2.
That's great. Can you schedule time to just get in your pool?
Yes.
Okay. When do you think that you would want to do that?
Probably, I feel like around 3-ish.
When did you do it before?
When did I get in my pool? Whenever I felt like it. That was just I had no job that caused me to leave the house. Nothing. There was no structure in my before pool times. It was just for fun.
Okay. Historically, before your injury, did you do better with other parts of your day when you exercised earlier in the day, or did you do better midday, evening? Like what worked best for you?
I definitely always did the best when my morning routine was always the same. It was like...
But included exercise?
Yes, you meditate and then you do yoga.
Okay.
And so that exercise piece happening first thing in the morning just would set my brain up for a really good day.
Can you meditate in the pool?
Yes, I can meditate now even inside or outside of the pool. So that piece is not a problem anymore.
Can you do yoga in the pool?
I can stretch in the pool in ways that are similar to yoga.
Does your pool have steps? So if you need to do a stretch that requires your head to be down, you're not going to be drowning?
Drowning? I bought a snorkel, so I have a solution for that too.
Is it one of those big like head mask snorkels? Because I have one of those. They're so much fun.
Oh my gosh, it's perfect. It's like full panoramic.
I got those. They're great.
Oh, yes. It's the most fabulous thing ever. I just got to play with it yesterday for the first time.
Quick tip. Don't forget to wash them out well after you just rinse them with water. Otherwise they get gross.
Yeah. Come on. I have OCD. It's clean. It's fine.
That was a silly suggestion on my point after you pointed it out. Okay. So, because it seems like this is a space where like you can do a couple parts of your self-care routine all in one place, right? You're in a place where the weather usually cooperates.
Oh yeah. Right. California. It's gorgeous.
So like weather is not going to be something that's going to really throw off the routine too much.
Correct.
Okay. Do you feel you have enough exercises that you could do? I mean, can you tread water?
Yeah, I even have a floaty belt, right? So it's like, what's interesting is it's never that I fail to come up with ideas. Yeah. And then it's knowing all of the reasons why, just as ADHDers, we fail. Oh, okay. I need to externalize cues and I need to do this. And I'll start doing all those pieces, but I get so stuck on the setting up of it. Okay.
So imagine for a moment you were talking to somebody else who had a parallel life to you. How would you suggest that they set this up?
I would probably suggest that they just get up every morning and watch that YouTube clip from like Shia LaBeouf where he's going, just do it. Just do it.
Does that work for you?
And that's what I would probably do sometimes, but
okay.
That would be my advice.
All right. What about like from the actual getting ready to get in the pool? Like what are the things you need to do so you can get in your pool?
I would say, well, honestly, yeah. So first step is I would say you need to actually put it in your calendar because currently I don't have that in my calendar. And the second step would just be making everything easy, having the access be easy, have the towels downstairs, have, the bathing suit downstairs, have whatever pool things that are needed in one place.
Do you need sunscreen?
That would qualify under pool things to me. Yeah.
But I'm just trying to think, what are the things that like we maybe have a tendency to like not think of until we're like in that moment and like, oh, I need the thing.
Yeah, I've started trying to keep a little bit of a list with those because I noticed even yesterday, I went to get in the pool and I got all the way downstairs and didn't have a towel. I was like, oh, now I have to go all the way back upstairs. Luckily, I did have one in the downstairs dryer. So
do you have some kind of like maybe a bin of some kind, like a nicer bin that you can just sort of keep by the door that goes to outside, and that's where your towels go, your pool towels?
I don't, but that's not exactly something that's hard to get.
Okay.
And that's a great idea. I did kind of just like totally rig it to where it looks terrible. And luckily no one's coming over because it's the pandemic. So I don't care because right now I'm just about efficiency. We totally just like stuck a nail in the wall, like by the door. So the towel can just
nice. Okay. Or get some like 3M hooks, because they come off. And what about like water?
Oh, drinking water?
Yeah.
I literally always have water on me, so that's never a problem.
Okay. They say you shouldn't put glass by a pool. Or you just lifted your glass like jar up of water.
We have plastic ones.
Okay. All right.
I don't use them.
Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll dip into some other areas. See what I did there? Dip. Okay. We'll be right back. Support for ADHD Rewired comes from ADHD Rewired's coaching community, which includes our 10-week intensive coaching and accountability groups that meet 3 times a week, and our alumni membership community, where members can join me for weekly sessions, partake in our adult study halls, meditation and breathwork classes, and so much more.
I learned that having ADHD doesn't mean that I'm broken or defective and hopeless. And I realized that there are other people with the same struggles who are just wonderful and compassionate and talented. And with that, I started to look at ADHD differently and look at myself differently, and also find solutions to tackle my everyday struggles, and to also find a way to accept myself. So before the group, I was kind of drowning in a sea of overwhelm and hopelessness and shame. And I felt broken, and I felt I would never be good enough. And every day I would wake up wanting to be better and wanting to be someone else and wanting to have another brain and wondering why I'm the only one who can't get things done. I can't do charts, my colleagues can't, and why I was struggling so much. And now, because of this group, I found hope, and I found ways to get things done. I mean, not everything is getting done, but a lot more is getting done. And the biggest thing is being able to accept that I have ADHD and my brain works differently, but so does the brain of many other wonderful people. So I'm okay with that. Biggest takeaway is that I'm not alone. There's a community of people here that share my struggles, and just knowing that has made it possible for me to accept who I am, and also to work on different ways to find solutions to navigate through my everyday life, and not to feel ashamed all the time. Being part of this group is like being part of a community where you can learn about ADHD and also learn about tools to help yourself. It's a place where you can share your struggles and victories, where you can find solutions together. It's a place where you find acceptance, where people actually get you and you get them. And that was really big for me. And just seeing the look of understanding, when I say like this happened to me, and seeing people nod and smile, like, wow, that's been amazing. That just changed everything for me. And I really didn't expect I would feel like this. And I didn't expect that I could be part of a group, because I've always felt like I didn't belong. But when I come to group, I still feel that I'm really part of a community. And I feel the understanding and compassion. I just didn't expect to find my tribe.
Go to coachingrewired.com to learn more about our intensive coaching groups. Registration is by invitation only, so click on that big red button at coachingrewired.com to learn how you can get invited to register. Our coaching groups are an investment to live a more meaningful life. Have you been thinking about joining these groups for a while? Are you new to the podcast and want to learn more? Go to coachingrewired.com and click on the red button. Take the first step by going to coachingrewired.com. Support for ADHD Rewired is brought to you by our patrons over at ADHDrewired.com/Patreon. Patreon allows listeners like you to support independent content creators like me. As this podcast is free to you, the listener, it is not free to produce. I appreciate everyone who can financially support this podcast. If you are in a position to show your support for the podcast financially, you can do that by going to ADHDrewired.com and click on the Patreon tab at the top of the page. Whatever you can give, I really appreciate your support. And when you support ADHD Rewired on Patreon, you can also get cool perks starting at just $5 a month. More and more patrons are becoming patrons at the $25 a month level, because at that level, you can join me for a group coaching call with other patrons every fourth Tuesday of the month at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. Our next one is today, if you're hearing this on October 27th. And if you can just give at the $10 a month level, you'll have access to the recordings of those calls, plus a bunch of other content. Plus, if you would like to get ad-free episodes for just $5 a month, let us know by voting on our Patreon page at ADHDrewired.com/Patreon. Right now, we have 16 yays and 16 nays. So if you would love to hear ADHD Rewired without the ads, go vote on my Patreon page. Or maybe you love the ads, so go vote. ADHDrewired.com/Patreon. But right now, if you are not able to support this podcast financially, or even if you are able to support this podcast but don't want to, either way, it's fine. Consider leaving a review on your favorite podcast player and hit that share button on the app that you are using and text it to a friend or maybe a sibling or a parent, especially if you think that they would get value from this episode. All of your support is appreciated. To become a patron, go to ADHDrewired.com and click the Patreon tab at the top of the page. That's ADHDrewired.com/Patreon. And thanks. All right, we are back. All right, so our first domino is putting the swimming on the calendar, making it as easy as possible by prepping everything, getting the towels ready, water, sunscreen, all the kind of stuff that you need. Okay, what's the next domino?
Making sure that I've already built in time to take a shower afterwards, because I'm going to have chlorine hair.
I mean, it's COVID. Is that really necessary?
It's about the chlorine getting in my hair, not about looking presentable.
I'm just kidding. Okay, so the shower. And what do you think that you'd have a tendency to just like kind of do stuff and then like the shower like that you meant to do and like next gets into
opposite?
Okay.
I'll actually think about all of the steps before I do the thing, and then I'll go, oh, I don't have time to do that.
Do you know exactly how long it takes you to take a shower after you get out of the pool?
26 minutes.
Okay. And that includes like getting dressed or like turning the water on and off?
That is from zero. That is from including like getting undressed to being finished. And thank you, Eric, for that, because that was something I learned in the coaching group.
So how many times are you washing your hair when you're in the shower?
How many?
Is there any OCD behaviors going on in the shower?
Oh, no.
Okay.
I don't even wash my hair every time I take a shower.
Okay. So 26 minutes. And how long do you want to give yourself in the pool?
Ideally, if I could get in there and swim around for 30 to 45 minutes every day, that would make a big difference for me.
Okay. And I think especially that the pool is a great thing because you can like carve out that 45 minutes. So you have that time, but you don't really need to be super active for that full 45 minutes. So like you can just kind of be floating around for a while and you're building that routine. And so maybe you start by, you're in the pool for 45 minutes, so 5 minutes when you start off is doing something physical where you're kind of, getting your heart rate up a little bit, and the rest is just kind of floating around and enjoying yourself. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So 45 plus 20 something you said for an hour and 50. Let's call it an hour and a half, pool and shower.
Might be a little bit closer to 2.
Okay.
I have bad transitions, like terrible transitions from anything. It takes me a really long time.
Is there anything that you could do? So tell me, what's a harder transition, going from the pool to the shower, from the shower to what's next?
I would say it depends. And it depends on just where if I'm having a quote unquote good brain day or a quote unquote bad brain day, because it's not so much the stopping. It's literally the like picking up and putting things away and moving part. I'm just obnoxiously slow.
What do you think about that? Is what makes you slow there?
It probably has to do with when it's a newer routine. Like I'm thinking back to, back when I was on my autopilot, like meditate yoga, my transitions were seamless.
Are you thinking about it too much? Like is there a lot of thought that's going into all the little minutia of all those little components?
Yeah, it's like I have to remember where the things go and what I'm supposed to do with them.
Do you need labels for the things that like this thing went here?
Yeah, I was actually thinking back as I was saying that and thinking about where the things need to go. When you mentioned having like a bucket by the door, that would fix the bulk majority of that for me. But some of it's also just, this is where things get kind of embarrassing for me. Some of it's also just getting out of the pool and like, okay, I have my towel on and there's these other things around me that I know need to come with me. And even just figuring out in my brain, what am I supposed to pick up? If I pick this up, then I won't be able to grab this thing right. And then having the chronic pain in my foot, what I don't want to do anymore is I don't want to have to walk inside and then have to come back outside.
Do you have stairs that you're dealing with?
Yes, there's multiple sets of stairs and lots of concrete.
Okay, so here is with the OT and the chronic pain. Put it all in a basket, a beach bag.
There's baskets that have actually I've seen these. They pull off a handle and have wheels on them, like a laundry basket, and you can just pull it.
Brilliant.
And then, just throw it all in the basket and then you're not thinking about the pain. It's just putting it in the basket and you're not worried about holding what thing.
I am cracking up right now because there's literally like a perfect tote bag, like literally in my closet right behind me right now for this. I'm so excited because I didn't even think about that.
And even think about nesting as well. Like, can you put having a smaller container inside the basket? So it's like, all right, everything goes in here, but you're putting these couple of things in the smaller container that's in the basket because you need to take that whole thing with you when you bring everything else inside. So it's how do you grab as much stuff as possible and even label the basket, what goes where.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. And I do have a label maker.
And I would encourage you to race on your label making, actually set a timer and be fast. I know you.
I want you to think about how heavy things are, how much heavier they get with the water, about your positioning when you walk and how you're walking. So I don't know what this tote bag looks like, but sometimes a backpack, even though is better depending on how it distributes. Sometimes pulling something behind you on wheels will actually cause more pain than be helpful. So just make sure to really think about your body positioning and your ergonomics when you're planning on how you're moving all this stuff. If you're home alone by yourself, I don't know how you feel about rolling walkers. I don't want you to feel like you're being an old person or whatever like that with a rolling walker. But
as long as you put a horn on it and some streamers and right.
And if you have enough stuff, then it's not about that anymore. It's what do you have to transport? It's not about, and then you talk to me about too your cane and trying not to use it. And then when do you actually use it? If you're transporting stuff, this is not the time to worry about whether you're making it too easy. Right. That's my only thing there.
And Jessica, I remember, I think last season after it was starting to get too cold to play pickleball, And so I was going back to the gym like the first week, like every time I either forgot underwear, I forgot deodorant, like it was like I didn't have. So what I did is, when at the gym after forgetting like at least 2 different things, I was like, yep, so I think I just used Evernote for it at the time. And I just made a list of like, what do I need in my gym bag? And for like maybe a week or 2, I just went off that list and then it became routine.
I have a question around that too.
Okay.
And this probably goes more with the unsticking a loop issue, right? So I thought to myself, maybe if I put a list of what I need to do and I'll put a dry erase marker and I'll hang it up and then I can just check it off. Why am I not meditating? Well, let me choose the space I'm going to meditate in, pre-select the meditations. And I actually did all those things, printed the list, put it where it needs to go. Tried to go back to my same old morning loop, but now I'm on a new one. So what happens is I walk out of the bedroom and my brain goes, I know my list is in there. I know I need to go in there and meditate. But it's like my body pulls me down the stairs to go follow my current pattern, which is, eat the dogs, take the meds, eat the food, sit in the office, do the work. Yeah.
Can you create barriers for your physical barriers to make that pull actually so you anticipate the pull and now you've created obstacles to anticipate the pull so you actually go into the room to meditate?
So it's at the top of the stairs, trying to figure out, because that would be fun for my boyfriend. Just put the dog gate at the top of the stairs and just forget to warn him about it. And he just walks out and face plants.
I'm curious because in describing, we were talking about meditation before we were talking about swimming. And swimming definitely lines up with what seems to be your main focus, which is the healing that you want. But just now you said you wrote out on a dry erase board, essentially what was your routine before. You also wrote it out here. You also wrote out your current routine. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's a list of 8 things that you've written out to do from start to finish, but you have nothing built up to support you to do it. And just before we were doing a great brainstorming for just swimming in the morning. I wonder if you have any thoughts about the list that you're trying to re-implement.
As far as prep for it, is it too much? That is actually, you're probably actually hitting on the most important thing there, and something that I struggle with. I think that even though I'm aware, I know, and I use this metaphor all the time with my friends, which is this: if you go to the gym and you're a gym rat and you're going 6 days a week and you're lifting heavy weight, that's great. But if you get hurt or go on vacation, take some time off, and that winds up being months, well, you don't go back and lift the same weight. Right? So it's intuitively I know that, but when I'm shooting for my goal, it doesn't feel like it's the same weight that I used to lift. So that's a really, really good catch there, Blake.
So the feelings of serenity, but also the feelings of gotta latch on to stability, are really strong opponents to what seems like a reasonable second or third domino, because you might not have a routine that gives you that sense of serenity, and so it doesn't seem worth it. You might want to find that somewhere else, or the stress is awful.
Erika?
So to be clear, and I understand the pain issue, I've had some injuries, so I get what happens to your life basically when you're injured. It's completely disrupted. So are we talking about that things you were able to establish routines before, or you had some good ones and then the injury completely blew everything away? I also got the impression that just changing routines in general is very difficult. I mean, so changing routines for you is a very historic kind of issue, but you had found some, and then with the injury, you're not able to come back from that and get new routines again, right? And you have to, though, because your health is going to be affected.
Right. Yes. Yeah, that's 100% correct. And then also because when I do get in like a good routine groove, and, yes, like to tie back into what Blake was saying, that does just provide me with so much peace and calm, and that predictability is great. But when I get into a groove like that, it makes everything else more difficult. Right. So. Okay.
So Jessica, you know what you want to do. You even set up the cues, but then you have this like inner voice, this pull that kind of has you doing the thing that you've been doing, right? Can you give that voice a name?
Sure. Like, yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Is there a name that you're thinking of?
I'm trying to. Like the struggle you're seeing on my face is my brain going, oh, it doesn't feel personified, though. It just feels more like a magnet or a force field or a really warm blanket that I want to keep snuggling in.
Saruman talking to you from the ring.
Say that again?
Beckoning you. I can't ever say it right. It's the evil dude from Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings.
Sauron?
But we want the name to actually be somewhat of a neutral, like without a like big emotional connection to the name.
Lucy.
That's cute, though.
Well, I like Lucy. It's a kind name. It's a neutral name. It's a name. But Lucy also is like Lucifer. I was also thinking like loosey-goosey, like flexibility.
Oh, I like that. Yeah. I'm also just like cracking up right now. You get a room full of ADHDers. We go down all kinds of fun roads.
So here's sort of the idea. So when you can sort of recognize in the moment that like, oh, I want to go to this room to meditate, and I've even seen the cue, and yet there's this energy pull that's like pulling me away from the room, even though I know I want to be in the room. You say, Lucy, this is what we're doing right now. I know that you really want me to go down there. Like, we'll go down there, but just after I meditate. So sort of acknowledge the pull. Externalize the idea behind it, right? And just know that it's going to feel uncomfortable until it doesn't. I mean, that's what exposure work is all about. It's like it pushes you into this feeling uncomfortable until it doesn't. And then and then you shifted. And the thing to keep in mind too, and we're talking about getting up your sort of the couple first dominoes in the day, right? Like routines are built just like a building, one brick at a time, right? And if you try to I want this routine that covers me from the time I wake up to the time I go to bed, like that shit ain't gonna happen. Right? That's just like, you gotta anchor something new to something old. Once you've established the something new and it's now becoming established, then you anchor something else to it. And yes, routines take time to build. They take about as long as Rome.
Yeah.
Speaking of Rome, I think we need to roam over to one more break, and we will be right back. If you are new to this podcast, welcome. I want you to know that we have 2 other podcasts here on the ADHD reWired Podcast Network. Check out Hacking Your ADHD with Will Kerb every Monday. Join Will as he explores ways that you can work with your ADHD brain to do more of the things that you want to do. Did you listen to last week's episode on self-compassion? I did. And if you have a tendency to beat yourself up when you fuck shit up, go listen to part 1 and 2, which are now both out. Check out his latest podcast and then hit subscribe. Each episode is about 15 minutes long. They're smart, funny, and short. Subscribe where you listen to podcasts. And every Friday, check out ADHD Essentials with Brendan Mahan. Brendan's podcast is kind of like this one, but with a focus on families, parents, and educators. Both podcasts, Hacking Your ADHD and ADHD Essentials, are both part of the ADHD reWired podcast network, available to everyone, everywhere you consume podcasts. And in January 2021, we're launching 2 new pods with 2 fantastic ADHD women. One of them is focused on intersectionality and diversity, and will be sharing her perspectives as an Asian Canadian living with ADHD. And our other pod will be aimed at those who identify as women. And you can meet both of them at next month's live Q&A. So join me and the host of Hacking Your ADHD, Will Curb, and ADHD Essentials, Brendan Mahan, and our newest host, Moira Mabin, and MJ Siemens, for an hour of live Q&A next month, November 10th at 1:30 p.m. Eastern. Join and ask questions to our new panelists and come with any questions you have related to ADHD. Go to ADHDrewired.com/events to register for this and upcoming live Q&As. We've added a bunch more live Q&As to register for in 2021. Join us every second Tuesday of the month at 10:30 a.m. Pacific, 1:30 p.m. Eastern for an hour of live Q&A. Register for free at ADHDrewired.com/events. That's ADHDrewired.com/events. Join us October 13th at 1:30 p.m. Eastern. We'll see you there. And we are back. All right, just repeat what you had just said right before we came back from break.
Right. So Eric, you were saying that routines take so long to build, and part of my challenge is that, I'm a little bit of a unicorn in that they don't tend to take long for me to build. And I actually can and have many times in my life done here's my routine that covers me from the very beginning to the very end of the day. And every single week is exactly the same. Okay. But then I get stuck there.
How responsive or how sensitive are you to your environment?
Highly.
Okay. Is it time to rearrange some furniture?
Beyond.
Because I know that can actually be a powerful cue to I'm doing something different. Like my stuff is set up differently.
Yeah, my stuff is actually set up. So I struggle a lot with sensory issues, a lot. Visual, lights, noises, straight down to where I sit to have dinner. I can hear the refrigerator going. And some nights it's so bad that my entire body tenses up. So I think that some of my perseverating on specific routines right now is actually tied into struggles from that stimulus beating in on me and me trying to calm myself with this. This is the way that it is.
You would be so perfect for my business.
You're her ideal client.
I want to follow you around your house and just do the thing that I want to do for my business.
I will wear a camera on my head. I am happy to be a lab rat if you could help me.
Because it's all about the sensations and the furniture and it matters. It all matters. And then you get stuck in a thing and you don't realize why. And it's because it's this guttural, instinctual thing that you have at one time you were aware of and now aren't. Because you're avoiding this physical uncomfortableness that is brought to you by stimuli.
Brought to you by the refrigerator sound. Not fun.
Is it an inconsistent sound?
No, but what's interesting is inconsistent noises I'm a bit more okay with because it changes. But the constant hum of something that is the same, it drives me insane.
It grows, doesn't it? It grows until it's all you hear.
Yes.
Because you're focusing on it because it's all you can focus on.
I can't block it out. And then it blends with the other noises in the house that are constant. And
now I know this would be different when your boyfriend is around, but have you considered just wearing a pair of noise canceling headphones?
I am so fortunate. My boyfriend's actually a movie trailer composer. So he's like super great headphones. And he just gave me a pair of his from before. And yes, I have to tell you that since I've started wearing those in the office, like the amount of migraines I'm getting in a week from tensing has gone down.
That's amazing.
Super helpful. I should wear them more though.
So what about, so you said you there's a room on your upstairs that you use to do your meditation, right? But you're being pulled downstairs.
It's because it used to be downstairs. I never used to do it upstairs.
Why does it need to be upstairs?
Because I have a bunch of kittens now that I didn't used to have.
Wait, explain.
Yeah, that was really random. So, April of last year is when I got hurt. And before that, at that time, I had not been hurt and I had one dog and that is it. Then I got hurt and sometime around July, while I was healing, a stray starving cat showed up. She stuck around. I was in a bad place. She was clearly in a bad place. We decided to adopt her, take her to the vet, go to get her fixed, and surprise, whoop, she's already pregnant. So a month later, she has 8 kittens. And life was like the most beautiful, cuddly madness in the world. But we wound up adopting 3 of those kittens. So here I am now with my same dog, the mama cat, and the kittens. And the mama cat and the dog don't get along. So there is a separating the house with doors issue. And yeah, it's still madness, not as cute and cuddly as it was.
Can you meditate outside before you get in the pool or in the pool even?
You actually just gave me a really good idea, like a good alternative. I know that I wouldn't do it before or in the pool just because I know myself. So I'm just not even going to go myself down that way or push myself down that way. But I get up early enough now to where it's still nice and cool outside. And I actually need to be outside more. I could pivot, still do most of the things the way I'm doing them, but take my breakfast outside instead of into my office. I still get away from the cats, which is the whole point of coming into my office. So if I just change that one variable and eat outside and then meditate outside, that could work.
You said you got a pretty awesome new snorkel, and it's your own pool, so you're not like having to worry about other people, right?
Yeah.
Face down meditation, oh my gosh, in the pool with the snorkel, that would be amazing.
Yeah, I caught a small glimpse of that yesterday where like I swam around for a bit and the last half I was like wearing my little floaty belt, which was great, and just staring down at the reflections that the pool made on the bottom, and it was so quiet and so nice. And
I can guarantee your cats aren't jumping in that pool.
No, they're definitely not. And my kittens aren't allowed outside because there's coyotes across the street. So that's my outside backyard is a safe place.
I have a question. In your mastermind, one of the things you wrote up as a potential benefit of learning to unstick your loops, you wrote getting to put down the sword.
Yeah.
Earlier you talked about essentially fighting a lot, like with life. So this thing that you want, this getting to put down the sword, could you speak a little more to that? What does that actually look like? Yeah.
So I find that everything, everything, that's so dramatic. A lot of things feel like just such a struggle. And when I've talked to, therapists or doctors, I don't tend to come across that way. I tend to come across like very articulate and like maybe my IQ is a bit higher. Maybe if I've gone for evaluations and testing, I tend to score really well. So people don't see that some of these basic things, some of these routines, and some of these just day-to-day life things are really difficult. And so that's kind of what I'm referring to when I say stuck in a fight, because I try to ask for help and usually just not quite the right kind of help. It's more like, but you're really good at stuff. I'm like, thanks for the gold star, but maybe a tip would be nice. So yeah, so if I can unstick and get out of these loops and let some of this stuff go, then I feel like I could relax.
So it's a mixture of sort of a piece from all the things that you're fighting against to get these routines unstuck, and also a sense of validation or affirmation that you're not crazy and these things are hard and you're getting them done.
Yes. And thank you. Yes. Yeah. A lot of it is just wanting someone to be able to see the struggle enough so that I can address it. Not because I need to be reassured that I have talents or that I'm capable. I've got that. Thank you. Well, I appreciate it. And I see it. And I'm super grateful for it. I'm glad I had it. If I didn't, everything would be 20 times harder. But yeah, that validation and that piece of, I see that it's hard and let's see what we can do. Like, let's give you some strategies and try them. And if they don't work, then that's okay. We'll try some more.
Erika?
Kind of along this line, I guess one thing I'm wondering is a little bit is like, are we giving you what you need today? Like, is this feeling like what you wanted and that you are not seeing in other places? And I guess, I've worked with you too for these many weeks, and I see how sometimes a small thing, I've seen you take a routine or take something that we're trying to do that's not, a project and turn it into something really huge, really beautiful, really like the universe.
Use the metaphor, Erika. Use the metaphor that you told me. Band-Aid versus, yeah.
Oh, like the neurosurgery, yeah. We were working on something and I said, and I realized, because I was like right there with her, so I can see what happens to other people. Like, I was like, yeah, but wait, we just want to Band-Aid this. You're like getting into neurosurgery, and I can see how that would be like very distressing actually for you if you were along that ride, because it's like, you don't see it. Someone else might, but you're like, it's not going to be good enough unless it's neurosurgery, because that's where my brain went. And it's good to have the brain go there. But then how do you disrupt that and say, I just needed a Band-Aid. A Band-Aid's going to be fine. Everyone's going to be fine with that. And I can park the neurosurgery. So it's really what's the disruptor, or how do you, how can you stop yourself when you're like, I just need to go out to the pool. I don't need to combine all schedules from all of my entire life into this like thing that I can then do every day and be perfect. And so it's one of the things I wrote down was just pain and perfectionism and disruption. And
because you don't need to create, as you wrote, the super routine.
Yeah.
All things.
How about like routine-ish, like routine enough, right?
I hope you guys caught like there's a little bit of like tongue in cheek there with that. It's like, my masterpiece. Yeah, no. Right. And it's, gosh, yeah, you hit on something that's so important. It's almost like, it's like my brain likes to do calculus all the time and doesn't realize I really just need to do 1 + 1 = 2 here. But like my brain didn't even think to go there. It just went.
You want to go into like the philosophy of why 1 + 1 = 2 versus just answering the question.
Yes. And it's like, that is my autopilot. So it's not that I'm even trying to do that. It's, I always think about that show, The Good Doctor, where, he looks up and then you just see all these puzzle pieces moving. And that's basically my brain 24/7, like even in the grocery store trying to pick something to eat for dinner. It doesn't stop.
That's got to be exhausting.
Hypervigilance. You're stuck in a state of hypervigilance. It's perfection, but it's different. You must, or else, which is an OCD thing. And like you get stuck in that and you feel like the only way to get out of that state of hypervigilance is to complete this circle, but you've created the circle.
I think that kind of represents the sword itself. Is wanting to put down the sword requires addressing, I think, what Natalie brought up. I don't know how to put this because it's hard to explain it on air, but there's like a I'm willing to do things section and I'm not willing to do things section. Mm-hmm. And you specifically put, in fact, I'm so willing that I've deleted this other question of what I'm not willing to do. And I just get this image of you with this sword over your head, like, bring me something to stab, chop, or hack. Like, I am ready.
Even though we're just bringing to you like a peach that we want cut in slices.
Right. Right. A butter knife would have done to spread that butter on the toast there, dear.
You don't get serenity or peace with a sword. You don't get serenity or peace with a sword.
Yeah. And I have to say, like, I there's pieces of that, Natalie, that I do, that I can identify with or that I can see, but most of my routines don't actually seem to be motivated by, they get worse when I am stressed or anxious, but they're not motivated by a thought, or it doesn't feel like hypervigilance to me. It just feels like,
well, it's an automatic process for you at this point.
Yeah, well, it's been that way my entire life.
Well, that's what I'm saying, though. That's what OCD is. It's not that you're aware.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to be aware of your hypervigilance. It just is. And that's why it's so hard to fix.
Funsies.
So then how do we then help you sort of activate and increase awareness of this hypervigilance?
And you've become aware of it in some instances. You've talked about it when you make your perfect lists for the grocery store. And then there are times where you notice and can't do anything about it, but you've noticed, at least you've noticed it there. But you haven't noticed it in your everyday. You haven't noticed it in your routine because you haven't been looking for it.
You know, one suggestions that I often make for like when we're dealing with strictly OCD stuff is do sort of that low hanging fruit kind of like exposure, just so your brain is constantly working on being flexible. You know, it could be anything from like, do you always eat with your right hand? Like, try eating with your left hand, right? Like, brush your teeth with the opposite hand if you can. Like just like small things that are sort of inconsequential, but like just sort of priming your brain to do things in a different way just because. Your face when I said that was like, why the fuck would I want to do that?
No. Actually, I was thinking my fruit must be a bit higher because I don't see any problems with switching my hands when I eat, or, you know, I don't know.
And I was going to say, don't switch. You're right-handed, right? Don't switch hands when you eat right now. Just saying,
because
with
it's
the
spreading.
stuff going on in your hand.
Don't let those nerves sensitize more. Yeah. I got you there.
So use no hands when you eat.
Eat with my face. No silverware. Just put my hair up. Face, plate.
Hey, Jess, is there a particular feeling when you're getting on that good ship of like, I've got a project to do, I've got a routine I'm thinking about, but I can think of, I'm starting to go to the land of like all the things that I'm going to layer into that. And I'm going to, and all these things I'm going to do. Is there a feeling you get, a charge? You know how we do, right? We get into that sort of excitement in ADHD all the time, right? We get into that excitement. Like we know we're kind of flying. I'm just wondering if going forward, you can start to say to yourself, I've got that really super good feeling because my brain is on fire. It feels really good. But, that could be an indication that I'm getting into that hyper focus, or I'm getting into that place that I don't really need to be, because it's going to get you into that loop. So just thinking, because I know what it feels like. I have a feeling too when I have, I'm like, oh, that felt really good. And I really messed me up, so.
Yes. Yeah. No, that's a really good point. And those kinds of things is like, that's my zone of genius, right? So obviously I love living there because my brain doing that amazing web expansive thing and being able to see all these angles and solve all these problems makes me feel so good that of course I want to stay there. I don't want to be living out here dealing with the things that are just so freaking hard. I want to be able to like let my brain out of its cage and let it like run loose and like exercise and have fun.
How hard is it to keep your brain in a cage? Actually, that's probably the not right way to ask the question. The way I wrote it down myself actually is, are you willing to invest less of yourself into this struggle? Like not live in that brain completely spread out space all the time? I know that I struggle with that. I know that we're twins. So I know that I hit this point where it internalizes as, well, if you cared, you would try harder. If it's a good job, it's worth doing well. And my brain will take that challenge on.
Interesting.
But it won't. It takes me in places I don't understand. Usually painful.
I don't think I even get to the thought part of it. Like I don't do you should try harder. I don't feel like, it needs to be perfect. It's just that my brain automatically goes to calculus. It's just what it does. It's like, I'm not nervous about it not being good enough.
Think about it this way. I've seen this a lot in the world of autism where you have of course, there's that comparison between like a Mac and a PC. It's like, it's just a different operating system, right? And so I think your brain just kind of has a different operating system, right? Mm-hmm. So you might need to like update the code a little bit, maybe run some scripts that are going to help you to, I think you can probably create some Excel formulas to help with this. I'm trying to mix my metaphors right now until they completely don't make any sense.
I know.
Defrag the hard drive.
That totally makes sense for me. And that's actually exciting. I love comparing my brain to a computer. When you put it that way, it feels doable. When you put it in the simple terms, it feels impossible.
Ooh, I love that because almost there's a paradoxical approach here then. Like, how do you complicate simplicity?
Yes, that's actually, yes. Like yes. Yeah.
It requires some nurturing or some work on this. I'm going to ask you in just a second for what takeaways and what commitments you want to make. We're about the hour mark. I know that Erika has a boat she needs to catch. But I just had to share when Blake was talking about like the runaway brains and brains in the cage. Am I the only one that was picturing, remember Brain from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? That was like the guy that was like, I think it was inside of Shredder. Am I mixing the cartoons or is that the right one? Like Brain. I just imagine like Brain popping out of like his little thing. He was inside like he was like in the bad guy's like midsection and he would like have the controllers, right? Like I just sort of have this image of him just like popping out of the body and then just like kind of running around. Okay, I felt like I needed to share that. It probably wasn't necessary that I shared it, but
I love it. I was actually thinking of like the brain animation from Jessica's like how to ADHD from Jessica McCabe, the Wall of Awful thing. I was picturing that brain sad.
All right. Takeaways, what commitments do you want to make?
I actually love the metaphor that Erika gave me, neurosurgery versus Band-Aid. And I would actually like to commit to writing that on an index card and sticking it on my computer, or maybe even making it my background, because the places I get messed up the most is my computer.
What if you wrote them on Band-Aids?
And stuck them on my forehead, or... I could just put Band-Aids on, like, I could just wear a Band-Aid in plain sight, and that could...
You could hang your reminders and things up with Band-Aids. Yeah. Just...
You're no longer allowed to use standard office supplies. You now must only use Band-Aids. Yeah.
Right.
I need to tape this together. Hold on. Band-Aid. Oh my goodness. Yeah. So I don't think I'm going to commit to that all the way there, but to circle back around to commitments, I want to keep playing around mentally with this idea of complicating simplicity.
Or simplifying complications?
Complicating simplicity or making it complex, bringing complexity to simplicity. But there was something in that when I go back and listen to it, it works for me. And thinking of the way that you mentioned about the brain being just a different operating system. I mean, that feels like how my brain works. It's just always that way. I've experienced hypervigilance, and I've had that feeling too. So it feels a little bit different. So I want to just kind of, maybe I'll commit to meditating on that.
That's a great idea.
Outside. And just lowering the bar a little bit.
Just don't trip on it.
Yeah, it's hilariously, it was a weight bench. Yeah, I'm trying not to do that again. Thanks, guys.
Oh, man. All right. I hope this was helpful.
Definitely.
Jessica, thank you. Natalie, Blake, Erika, thank you. All right. So this wraps up the final installment of our Mastermind sessions. These were our admin, our peer mentors who were alumni for ADHD reWired's coaching and accountability groups. And just thank you for everything you all have done. And we will catch all of you next week. This is Eric Tivers. Thank you for listening, and congratulations for making it to the end. ADHD reWired is more than just a podcast. We are a community focused on learning, growing, and connection. The website is ADHDrewired.com. You can find summaries and additional resources for each episode. You can apply to our free and secret Facebook community. You can learn more about ADHD reWired's intensive online video-based coaching and accountability groups, and sign up for my email newsletter to get exclusive content you won't get anywhere else. It's all at ADHDrewired.com. While you're there, click the Patreon button. If you're a regular listener and you're still listening to my voice, consider making a monthly contribution by becoming a patron through our Patreon page. If you are able to financially support my work, it would mean a lot. This show is free to listeners, but it is not free to produce. And patrons get really cool perks. You can follow me on Twitter at Eric Tivers. You can like our Facebook page at facebook.com/ADHD reWired. If you're a coach, therapist, or related professional, connect with me on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/Eric Tivers. You can also subscribe to ADHD reWired on YouTube. And you can subscribe to ADHD reWired on YouTube and see select interviews and some other videos I've posted. Podcasts change lives. You can make a difference in someone's life by spreading the word about this podcast. Mention it in your online communities on Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, or wherever you hang out online. And be sure to share it with your friends and your family and your clients, as well as your coaches, therapists, and doctors. And if you're a coach, therapist, doctor, or ADHD support group leader, and you would like a pack of podcast postcards to hand out, you can request those at my website, ADHDrewired.com. And if you're a member of CHAD or any other ADHD support group, please be sure to tell them about this podcast. You can even show them how to download it on their phone. You know, you might be the person that turns somebody on to a podcast for the very first time. And if you really love this episode, please consider hitting share on your podcast player. I'm only one person, and I count on you to help me spread the message. One of the biggest things that you can do to support this podcast and to help other people discover it is to leave an honest rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or any other podcast app that accepts ratings and reviews. And don't forget to hit subscribe on this podcast on your podcast app so new episodes are automatically pushed to your favorite podcast app. Looking for more ways to listen and learn? Get a free audiobook and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/ADHD reWired. Not sure where to start? In no particular order. Check out Atomic Habits by James Clear, The Body Keeps Score by Bessel van der Kolk, 10% Happier and Meditation for Fidgety Skeptics. These are both by Dan Harris. Change Your Questions and Change Your Life by Marilee G. Adams. The One Thing by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan. Procrastinate on Purpose by Rory Vaden. The 4 Tendencies by Gretchen Rubin. Do you have trouble asking for help? Listen to The Art of Asking by Amanda Palmer. It's one of the best produced audiobooks I've ever heard. If you're looking for something a little bit more, say, magical, I unexpectedly fell in love with the Harry Potter series. And I don't usually listen to those kinds of books, and I loved it. And of course, if you haven't yet boarded the Brene Brown bus yet, check out Brene Brown's books, starting with The Gifts of Imperfection, Daring Greatly, Rising Strong, The Power of Vulnerability, and if you're an entrepreneur or leader in any capacity, check out her 2018 book, Dare to Lead. And Brene still is my most wanted guest, so if you know Brene, and you would be so kind to make that connection for me, I would be really, really grateful. You know who else I would like to have on the show? You. Click the podcast tab at ADHDrewired.com and then click the Be a Guest button at the top of that page and schedule a 15-minute pre-interview. This is Eric Tivers, reminding you to keep learning, keep growing, and keep connecting. Self-care is not selfish, and no matter what gets done or doesn't get done, at the end of the day, you are still enough. And no matter how hard it feels, we can do hard things. Thanks for listening. I'll catch you next week.